Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to this session on leadership culture to transform your organization from the Center for Creative Leadership, and a guest speaker, Isabel Tufet from Santander Bank in Germany. My name is David Dinwoody, and I'm coming to you from Brussels, where we have the European campus of the Center for Creative Leadership. I oversee our leadership products and licensing as well. I'm a faculty member at CCL. I'm with Florence Plessier, who's our expert in leadership transformation. She is in charge of leadership transformation and culture. She's an advisor at the Center for Creative Leadership, and she's doing this both internally and externally with our clients. Isabel, coming again from Santander Bank in Germany. Very pleased to have you, Isabel. She's a very special guest star because we know her very well. She's an alumni of one of our programs. So why don't we do this? Isabel, could you just quickly introduce yourself, what your role is, and your passion about transformation?
Exactly. Okay. So Isabel Tufet, as you can see and hear, I'm a Spaniard, but living in Germany for the past 20 years. So I've been working in Germany in different companies, the last 15 years in Santander, Germany. And I have a new role actually since last year, which is being the Chief Transformation Officer of the bank, which is one of my, I think was my objective in the end. It's like one of my dream jobs. So that's finally doing what I really, really want to do. And within the Chief Transformation Officer, I have a lot of things like digital transformation, process, organization. But one of the key points of my Chief Transformation Officer role is that I am also responsible for people and culture here in Germany, so HR. So excited to be here and to share my experiences.
Isabel, it's a pleasure to have you with us. As I said, you're a very good friend of the Center for Creative Leadership, so thank you for joining us. Florence, why don't you speak a bit about your role and your passion for transformation?
Yeah, thank you. It is a pleasure. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It is a pleasure to be speaking about, indeed, organizational transformation, which is my favorite topic, and particularly about what works and what doesn't work. And for the last 20 years, I've very much succeeded and failed around transformation. And it has given me lots of stories that I would love to share with you today. I am from France. I'm currently based in France. How boring is that? But I've worked in the US. I've worked in Asia Pacific, actually, and based out of Brussels. So here with you and happy to share.
Florence, thank you so much. And we're looking forward to hearing from both those successes and perhaps some lessons of failure from your experience. Great. Audience, so we're dialing in from Belgium, from France, from Germany. We'd like to see where you're located. Why don't you just put into chat, if you will, where are you dialing in from today? We'd like to get your engagement in this session. Where are you coming from? All right. So why don't we do this? As the countries start to appear, thank you for sharing that with us. I'd like to start off, Florence, with a question. When we speak about transformation and the importance of senior leaders actually engaging in the transformation process, what can you tell us about what you've seen out there on the field?
Well, what I've seen is a manifestation of the research. So I'm going to start with the research because I think it brings good news and bad news for senior leaders. So the good news is that you make an impact. Whatever you do in support of the transformation is going to make a difference. The bad news is that you make an impact. And so whatever you're not going to be doing is also going to make a significant difference. And we have data. Actually, active and visible sponsorship of senior leaders is by far the biggest contributor of success of organizational change. And not any type of sponsorship. So at CCL, we differentiate change leadership and change management. Change management, you're very familiar. It's the system, processes, organization that you put in place to support the change. The change leadership is what sometimes you might call the soft stuff. Well, guess what? Soft is hard. It's the mindset, the assumptions, the behaviors that are triggered by those mindset and assumptions, and that might be supporting your strategic goals or not, actually. So again, research is quite painful on that topic because what it says is that 60% of delayed or failed organizational change have been caused by lack of attention given by senior leaders on the people side of stuff. So change is, soft is hard and soft is critical. That is really something that I want to start it with.
Thanks. And so we're going to dig into the soft and the hard elements of leading transformational change, and speak a bit about the human capabilities. And Isabel, I know you've been working a lot with your people in the bank and developing some of the capabilities that are crucial for them to have as they engage in these change processes. Can you tell us a bit about those capabilities and how we help develop them?
So I mean, I'm good at it now, but I must say, and this is what Florence was commenting as well. So throughout my career, I've been doing a lot of transformation in a different organization where I've been, and I've had many different roles, and I did a lot learning by doing and failing. Yeah, and at the very early stage, the soft stuff that Florence was mentioning, I realized that it's so crucial and so important. And just as a small example. Just before COVID, I was trying to reorganize a company, a subsidiary company that we have here in Santander. And we started very well off because we were communicating, we were in roadshows, we were, being close to people and explaining the change and the transformation. Then came COVID, and we were so busy with COVID, we just forgot to do that, and then our whole project just collapsed, for a few months, just because we just forgot to communicate and to talk to people and to engage with people, just because they were remote, right? So that was a big learning for me. And this is something that I'm now applying to the next transformation that I'm doing in the Santander, right? So it's a lot about communicating and binding with the people who are doing the transformation. You can have as many KPIs if you want. You can change processes, organizationals, you can do it top down, whatever you want. If the people are not engaged and they don't believe in it and they're not motivated, it won't happen. It just won't happen. It doesn't matter how many consultants you bring in. It doesn't matter. The people need to believe it and they need to be motivated about it. And the only way they can manage to do this is if that you're very open to them and transparent about the whole path and the whole process of this transformation. So we're doing a lot of, for instance, we have transformation talks. I had just last week a transformation talk. We just, opened an online channel where we just talk about our progress and what we do, at things that are working well and things that are working bad as well, right? And we let people interact. Yeah, we invite people from the business as well, from the being affected by the change. So we a lot of communication and a lot of explaining and bringing transparency to the process of change, right? So very important, the soft skills.
Okay, yeah, and some interesting examples of transformation talks. I find that fascinating that people can actually engage, contribute, and share perhaps some of their concerns. But we do know, as Florence was saying, that oftentimes these organizational transformations, they don't reach the goals and expectations we have of them. And we also know at the Center for Creative Leadership that digging into the human element, the human side of change, is one of the key factors. Okay. So audience, again, we'd like to hear from you. If you could just share with us a bit, when you think about the change going on in your organizations and those processes happening, what are some of the challenges you're seeing in the organization? What are the big challenges that the company has to take on and the leaders as you're going through those processes? What are you seeing? Just share that with us, please. We'd like to get a little bit of sharing amongst yourselves and learning from each other. Okay. So speaking about challenges, Florence, I know you've seen many organizations and you've seen a lot of challenges. Are there some challenges that are sort of common that all of us should be paying attention to?
Yeah, thank you, David. I think it really comes back to what we already said, but I just want to give it a bit of a different dimension. So think about it. Change is both collective and individual. And that's one of the challenges that we're faced. When is the last time that you talked to the organization, that you really had a conversation with an organization? We don't. We have conversation with individuals, as Isabel was saying, and they are the ones who will determine success. Because success, if you think about it, it's the adoption by everyone in the organization of the new ways of working. That is what success is about, which means that the collective will be successful if every individual has actually been, implementing the new behaviors, the new mindset, the new processes, the new structure, everything. And so that's the problem, is that we as individuals are coded to resist change. Our body is designed to conserve energy and favoring routine so that we conserve energy. So because it limits the efforts and it limits the cognitive processing that is behind, new things that we need to do. So because our brain is wired to prioritize safety, it perceives change as a threat. And I don't know if you've read the book by Robert Keegan about immunity to change. It really describes that process. And, maybe in the next webinar, David, what we could do is, walk people through the process that we teach leaders so that they can circumvent the opposition and the resistance to change. So, but that's for the individual component. Now, the collective component is that there are in the organization belief, assumptions, mindset, basically what we call culture, which is the way we do things here. So the way we do things in Santander, Germany, the way we do things in CCL, there is a way we do things. And whether the way we do things supports the organization in its desired state where it's supposed to go, that's a big question. So, unearthing that, really figuring out, being able to articulate what are the mindset assumptions, what is the culture of the organization today, it's going to really help. I have an example of a Swedish company that we worked with, and they had an IPO project. They wanted to become public, stock exchange, and it was a family company with a very, let me say, paternalistic and consensual culture. And they knew that if they kept that culture, they would not be able to compete in in private trade. So, as a public organization, sorry. So that's why there had been that collective realization around we need to act on the individual, but we also need to own the culture.
But can I step in because it's very important. It's the difficult of and I'm seeing the comments, and I think they're fantastic what people are saying, heart versus head and things like that, right? So what I've experienced, right, in companies is normally when you need to make a change or transform is because you're in a stress situation somehow or another. You don't change if everything is working fantastic. You don't say, oh, I'm going to change because I want to change my culture that is working fantastically. No, you change because you need to change, right? Mm-hmm. And in that moment, and that's this heart versus head, you're mixing a lot of KPIs at the same time. You're mixing like KPIs of profit. Yeah, you're mixing KPIs of cost cutting, maybe. You're mixing KPIs of sales or whatever, And very often, although in the beginning of the start of the project, we all say, yes, we need to change culturally. We need to pick up our people. We need to, help. When you're in this stress situation, this doesn't happen, right? And there is, of course, a physical part of the human being not wanting to change, but there's also a culture across the whole macroeconomics of companies, which has taught us throughout many, 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 many years that the best KPIs to look at are KPIs on cost, profit, and it's very difficult to put the soft stuff. And the soft stuff is just coming a few years, ago. And I've had this experience myself that I thought at some point, well, am I too much of a softie? Am I too much of, concentrating too much on people KPIs? Mm. And I've had contras as well from other people saying, hey, you're concentrating too much on the people, right? But experience shows that, like I said before, if you just concentrate on the business KPIs and you don't concentrate on the people KPIs, you will fail for sure.
Yeah. And David, can I?
Please build on that, Florence. Let's hear more about that.
Yeah, because you've just nailed one of the capability that we believe is so foundational for change, and it's reframing dilemma. So let me put it this way. I'm just going to a big word, but let me just put it. We need to change, and we need to stay the same. We need standardization, and we need customization. We need speed, and we need quality. So, framing change as an or, it's or we become global or we become local, creates conflict in the organization, and it creates resistance. Do we focus on the human part, or do we focus on the KPIs? So the capability, the new capability, the important capability there is to actually create a mindset of and. How do we do and? How do we do, human touch and KPIs? How do we do globalization and standardization? And so that's called what we call also leveraging polarity. And Isabelle, you might remember that from one of your programs.
Yeah, this ability to manage these paradoxes, things that appear diametrically opposed, and we know we have to do them both and do them both well. And I think, Isabelle, you got something very interesting. What we measure drives people's behavior. Oftentimes we say what people do, what managers review. And so we do have to be measuring and paying attention to those different KPIs and holding ourselves and others accountable for both sides of the polarity, change and stability, growth, profit, those sort of things. Okay, good. I'm seeing some very interesting comments about overemphasis on problem solving and not getting the right balance of head versus heart, kind of at the heart of some of these challenges. And I was provoked by this idea of immunity to change, Florence. You say that we're pre-programmed to sort of resist change at times. Isabel, I'm wondering, what do you do with people to help them get past this immunity to change?
To be honest, I'm not 100% sure if the immunity to change really exists. I think it's fear to change because things are not being clearly communicated. I mean, if you tell someone, hey, the change is that we're going to get a bigger house. The change is that we're going to go on a super trip. The change is that you're going to be promoted. I don't think they're going to be like, oh, I'm fearing the change. I'm not going to want to do the change, right? So, and I think very often, like I said before, the change is coming always with a stress situation. So change is very negatively, perceived by the employees because they think that the change is bringing, cost cutting, getting rid of people and things like that, right? And then there is nice, slogans like shrink to grow and things like this, which just means, keep people out. And, so I think I think people have to be treated like adults, and very often it happens to us that we treat them like children, let's not tell them what's going on, and let's make sure that they change with us, So again, I think you're supposed to make sure that you understand every single individual, that you understand their fears as well, and that you take them seriously as well. That's why I'm saying it's not only about communicating, it's also about listening to them. So we do a lot of, for instance, workshops where we ask people, to tell us openly, we open the platform as well where people can connect to us and they are the ones giving us feedback, but this feedback has to be without repercussion as well, right? So that they can feel in a safe space, safe environment and tell us, that's what you just did. You just really screwed it up, the way you changed the organization. And look at how we are, suffering here on safe spaces, not only by communicating, but by listening and also reacting on these fears. Yeah. And once you do that, I think you will be surprised how people are not so lenient to change and people are willing to do the change, right? And then another phenomena is, well, this is like when you're flying in a plane, right? And then the pilot says, please, fasten your seatbelts, and then you see the stewardess freaking out, then you will freak out as well. But if she's calm, you will be like, okay, right, this is the right way. So, and this is what I think is the importance of being a good leader in a company, of being a leader of, being what I always call the influential leader, like show, that things are going on the right path, explain why things are being done the way they are, enjoy as a leader what you're doing and the change. And if you're going around thinking that change, like predicting that change is good, but you're not actually showing it, then people won't buy it. So it's a lot of mindset and a lot of how you are acting and how you're physically acting as a leader and how you are, engaged the organization to this change.
Yeah, the importance of being a role model. Yeah.
Yes.
A bit of a role model. Yeah. It reminds me of my great mentor, Juan de Urquía, saying, as we were going through mergers and acquisitions, he said, David, our main job here is to breathe in complexity and breathe out assurance. Make people feel that we're assured, we'll do this together, we'll move through this together. Yes, it's complex. And at the same time, with assurance, we'll move through this together. You mentioned psychological safety. And Florence, I know that's something that you have put quite a bit of time into, creating the sense of psychological safety in teams. Perhaps you could touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, that's a very important piece, and it's a very fragile element because we do want to give people a transparent place, and they will express their frustration, they will express their fear. Isabel, as you were saying, they will say, well, look at what you've done, this is not what we needed. And indeed, what do you do with that? And how do you welcome that? We're working with an organization in the Middle East who wants to make a shift of culture about psychological safety, indeed. And we realized that, as you were saying, every action that is being taken by a senior leader in support or in destruct of psychological safety every day, every meeting, every second is going to actually shape how the speed at which a transformation is going to happen. Because in those type of transformation, senior leaders' role model and ability to change their own behavior and, do something that they've never done or do more of something they've done. so that they can show the way, and they need to remember that they're on stage every second of the way. And that, if they miss it, if, taken by habits themselves, they, for example, shut down somebody because they've used to do that, and they realize that it is not in service of psychological safety, the maturity, the ultimate reaction is to say, oh, wow, sorry, see, this is exactly the example of what we should stop doing. And we're not going to do it the first time. We're not going to be successful at changing that the first time. I've made a mistake. Okay, let's rewind. What were you saying? I want to hear you out. And that's tough on senior leaders.
Sounds like a lot of trust building through your own actions and encouraging others, building the trust so that people feel comfortable contributing and even making mistakes at times, even not getting it right at times in the process. Isabel, what experience do you have of sort of getting it right and getting it wrong and the impact on people?
Well, I explained this situation that we had during COVID, that was really getting it wrong, somehow. But I've had other experiences as well where we have kind of, and I learned from this experience and then changed that, actually corrected it and did it for the next transformation projects that I had, which was top-down deciding or defining an organization, sitting down senior leaders, at a table and deciding for the sake of hundreds of people below us, not really commenting and asking them on their experiences. I always say companies have the tendency to get very, expensive, high top consultants, that will come top down and will give, by the book, like an organization. This is the organization that's going to bring you success for the future, right? And so very often we forget the culture and what it means for us, right? So, and I always say, if you ask the employees that are in everyday life with these processes and with this organization, this is consultancy for free. If you just ask them, how would you do it? And we had the experience when we changed the organization of one of the companies. What we did is we took first, second level, and third level of the management and said, first of all, okay, you tell us, not top down, not senior management, but the next levels, tell us, if you were able to create the company from scratch once again, how would you do it? And forget about all the biases and what's not possible and impossible and IT and whatever and process and regulation. How would you do it if you had to do it from scratch? Yeah. And there was a lot of good ideas coming in, and then we were a bit even more daring and said, okay, let's now ask the employees. So we just, opened a platform and said, who wants to come and tell us about how we should reorganize the company? And we got a very, very, very good ideas. And the organization of the company today, the one that I'm talking about, is the organization that the employees at the time designed with us. Yeah. So that's like, it was a positive thing, right? And as opposed to in the past where we had, done top-down reorganizations, which did not work, So
right. How powerful it is to get the masses behind through their own participation and contribution and recognition. Okay, great. Florence, you've seen some things that definitely don't work. I know you've got some lessons of experience there. Do you want to highlight some of those things to avoid, as well as some of those successes that you've seen?
Yeah, I think so I'm focusing a bit on senior leaders here, assuming that it is of interest to this audience. Sometimes senior leaders, they think they don't need it. They don't need it. It's like, they embody the desired state. You imagine, because what we're doing is really saying, okay, today there's the current state of the culture of the people, and tomorrow there will be a desired state. It's after the change. Everybody will have embraced new ways of working, and there will be a culture that is going to be supportive to the change. And if you compare the desired and the current, you come up with a certain number of things that are going to have an impact to change that organization. And that's what we're talking about. And then you go to senior leaders and say, okay, how are you going to do things differently now that, you need to embody psychological safety, for example? And they're like, well, do it already. Don't need it. Don't need to do the extra effort. And I had really a particular example. I was coaching a senior leader, and as part of the executive team. And the senior leader was talking about how one decision that had been taken by the executive team in a very collaborative way was a success until actually it wasn't followed up and because they had not been able to create accountability as a team around that decision. Anyway, at the end of the conversation, I was, sharing what we were suggesting in order to improve decision rights and accountability. And I was like, okay, we are having specific actions around decision rights and accountability, and it would be great if you could take a part on that. And that same executive said to me, we don't need decision right and accountability at our level. And I was like, didn't you just tell me that you actually need it? I'm confused. So I think there is that, yes, they know where they want to go. And because they know where they're going to go, they think they're there. But actually, their everyday behavior might be infringing into that.
Mhm.
And so that's one of the big difficulty that we can have.
But you know what? It's the
Yeah.
Florence, I think it's the speed, and that's the thing. The higher you get into the hierarchy, the more stressed you are and the more speed you have, and at some point everybody laughs at your jokes, everybody tells you you're fantastic, you're the boss, right? So and then this reality check coming down and saying, wait a minute, is this really, like, do I need to change? Do I need to listen? And you can only get this if you really get feedback from your people. And it's so easy to say this, and everybody, if you ask any senior manager or executive, they will say, oh, yes, I am open for feedback. I'm always getting feedback. It's not true. Yeah. So to get feedback is very harsh, and we've gotten feedback because we have opened these platforms so that people could criticize us and tell us, really, really, you screwed up, It's very hard to listen to someone telling you screwed up and not wanting to react as a senior manager and saying, well, they don't really know what's going on and, the strategy and blah, And very often we tend to, and I put myself because I've had it as well, right? We tend to avoid this type of conversations. We tend to avoid this type of self-reflection. Like you said, the managers, we don't need it, because we don't really want to hear the truth, And I think that's something that it's key to being a good leader. It's key to doing a transformation. It's key to self-reflect as a leader as well, And then I think, David, later on we'll talk about my own experience on self-reflection, your LAP, which was life-changing. But I think that's super, super important to do this self-reflection as a manager. And I think someone put it in the chat as well. In order to do transformation and be successful, you need to start from the top. I don't know if there's an expression like this in English. In German, you say the fish stinks from the top. Well, it does, right?
Isabel, so you touched on something. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, David. There was a comment about servant leadership mindsets that I wanted to just piggyback on, because that's what true servant leadership is about, isn't it? It's like letting go of the ego, letting go of the belief that I know what to do, and being open to listening to the feedback, to the suggestions, and to say, okay, what is going to make it work from your perspective, and how can I change in service of what is going to be required for the change.
And this doesn't mean weakness, right? Because many times the confusion is, if you're the soft stuff that you call it, Florence, if you're, then they might say, oh, you're too empathetic, you need to be a hard leader that pulls the chains through, otherwise it doesn't happen, right? And you don't have time for the soft stuff, right? And very often it's perceived as at the top senior level like a sign of weakness if you're too democratic or asking too many questions or asking too many people, And I think, in the end, you do need. So servant leader, I don't know if it's servant leader is the right word. Maybe it's the influential leader, which I said. People do want direction. People want a vision, and people want to get the path free in order to go through. I always say, for me, it's like I'm a highly paid assistant, that just is, taking out all the hurdles so that my people who are the real experts can drive through this road and through this path of change, right? And I have no clue. I'm a good, organizer, strategical manager to move things, to move hurdles, to talk to people, to do the politics maybe. But the ones who drive through are themselves, and this is something that very often, and this is changing, of course, in the senior management. But the old school said, well, as a senior manager, you know everything. You're the expert. You're the guy who tells where we have to go, right? So, but it's not the case anymore.
Yeah, as well. It's very much. that's very much what we refer to as leadership culture, right? The ability to attract the right people, have them interact in the right ways, develop themselves and support each other creates a leadership culture in the organization. And you spoke about self-awareness, the importance of being aware of ourselves so we can have a positive impact on other people, Isabel. Can you say more about that? Because I know you did go through one of our programs, Leadership at the Peak, where there's quite a bit of self-awareness built into that experience. Could you say a little bit about that, how you apply that?
About my experience that I had in the LAP.
Yes, and how that was applicable in this change process that you're leading.
Well, to be honest, when I was when I enrolled myself in the program, it was some person who I really appreciate who said to me, "You need it. You're mentally not in the right stage, and you need to, if you want to become a better leader, you need to do this self-reflection. You need to do something, And it came at a time and it was December, so year end, horrible, year end, and it was 1 week going out of my company, let's say, right? Which was for me, 1 week. Then we got there and they were like, phones out, emails out, no computers, and I thought, oh my God, this is that the world is going to go under when I'm not there 1 week in my company, right? And I came into a stage of mind in which I was very focused on transformation, yes, and at the same time I was pushing the whole, cultural mindset, and I believe myself, and that to change a company, to make a transformation, the soft part was important, but I had the impression that I was losing my path because no one else was following my idea of following the soft stuff or following this people stuff, right? So I was very much into conflict with myself as a person and saying, well, am I doing the right thing? Am I not doing the right thing? Are they doing the wrong thing? Am I, or is it me? Maybe I don't fit in this company. Maybe I have to leave the company at some point, And I mean, it's to cut a long story short, through this process, what I learned is like, okay, these are my values. I still believe this is the right way to follow. And in this LAP, I felt like I was hurt. That people understood what I was saying. Maybe they were, they agreed with me or not agreed with me, but somehow I kind of, did this self-reflection and found my base again of saying, okay, right, this is what I want to do and this is what I want to follow. And it's like so easy, this is typical change it or leave it, right? So that's what I reflected there in the LAP. Okay, if I want to do something here in this company and I want to transform it and I want to do something else, either I change it myself, I'm active on it, or I leave it, right? So and I decided for the change, and this was at a time where I was having another responsibility, and after that I acted on it and became the chief transformation officer of the company. When I took the chief transformation officer role, my first thing, my first demand was, if I'm to transform the company, if I'm to be the chief transformation officer of the company, I will not do this unless I get people and culture on my side, unless I am responsible for people and culture. We call it people and culture, but it's the classical HR area, because without people, I cannot transform. So that was for me very, very clear that this was, the role that I had to follow. And I think we need to give the space to our employees and our leaders to do things like this, to step back, while you're in a, sometimes, and I don't know, that the expression in Spanish is, dress me slowly because I'm in a hurry. Yeah. And very often in this hurry and this, wanting to transform, we forget about giving the space to people to reflect, to self-reflect as an individual, as a team, as a company, to step down, breathe a little bit, check and say, are we still following the right vision? Are we still going on the right path? Because you might have to find your vision, your transformation path and everything, your culture, it might be even working properly. But in the meantime, in this road, you might, derail and might be doing something else, right? Because you just forgot to make that self-reflection. So super important to, in my opinion, and like you say, I'm a big fan of CCL to do this, change moments, of your life, self-reflection, to retreat yourself, to go 3 days to do something else and take care of yourself and understand where you're going.
Thank you for that, Isabel. And I know Florence and I have, when we speak about strategic leadership, oftentimes we have a phrase, we say, it's important to slow down, to speed up. We can't speed up if we don't take a little bit of time to slow down, get things on track, do a bit of a reflection. So slow down to speed up. I'd like to open up for some insights from Florence as well. But in the meantime, I'd like you to post your questions. What questions would you have for Florence and Isabel that you would like them to address?
David, I think someone asked, what is LAP? LAP is Leadership at the Peak. I think you're going to explain afterwards. And this is my life-changing experience that I had with CCL. And then maybe you can explain afterwards.
Thanks for sharing that. That is one of the programs we offer, and of course, is addressed towards executives and organizations and helping them find something in themselves that they can then take back to the organization and have a positive impact on other people. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Just building on that, I think that one of the challenges that sometimes organizations face when in transformation is is linked to what we call vertical development. And this is what LAP is about, which is why I'm connecting the two. It's not about filling the glass. Imagine that your brain is the glass and we're doing horizontal development, what we call horizontal development, by filling your glass with competencies and skills. Vertical development is making the glass bigger so that you can apprehend complexity, so that you can see yourself, others, and the world with a different lens, from a different perspective, and have an elevated, what I call an elevated sense making. And change requires ability to manage another level of complexity. So that's what we try to inject into the Leadership at the Peak program, and in all of our program, is building bigger minds. That's what that's the expression that we want, so that leader can really harness the power of conceiving what the future should be like, and how to the change should be multipolar, because as we're saying, it's not either or, it's not KPI or people, it has to be both. And so, but for that, extended ability to manage complexity is an important element.
That's important, this elevated mindset, Florence. And we do know that developing this elevated mindset comes through tough experiences. It comes through going through experiences that push us out of our comfort zone and force us to take a step up and see things in a little bit more strategic, forward-thinking way. And that's very much about what these developmental experiences are all about. Okay, great. So any other questions out there that you'd like to explore? We've got some great comments in the chat.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Florence, any other further insights that you'd like to
show leaders that this would be the right path? There's a question around thinking, believing that the soft stuff is something that no one in their organization is going to buy in. So just let me start, Isabel, and then I'll give you the floor. We have research, we have data. Actually, remember the first piece of data that I shared at the beginning? It is actually real data research that you can find on the ProSci website, and that says that 60% of the projects that have failed or that have not achieved the expected result have done it because the sponsors have not given enough attention to that soft dimension. So I really recommend that you connect to that data and bring it, and so that it can help you influence. Isabel, what else can help them influence around the soft stuff?
I don't have so much data. I just have my experience of the different things and transformation projects that I had, right? So in the end, how can I convince leaders to go through this culture and to do this transformation, right? So it's not so much about convincing. It's like I said before, somehow it's when you see other people succeeding, and that's what happened, all of a sudden they saw, our project is succeeding. People want to jump in as well in the success, right? And when you allow them to jump into the success, when you tell them, well, go on, try with us and be part of it. This is like that's why I'm talking always about the influential leader. It's like influencing people. It's like gaining influencers. Like if you were in a social media or something like this, if you like something, you will follow it, and if you follow it, you will start doing what the influencer is doing, right? So that's what we are doing, and that's how we have convinced people, and that's how we convince first our own leaders, and then people who work with us. And just as a little anecdote, I'm going on in I think 2 weeks' time. We're going on an offsite with my whole area, my whole resort, which is the digital transformation guys, which are like techies, right? It's like programmers. I'm going with the human resources guys, because they are creative. They think otherwise, no? We have the legal guys there because I also have legal. Have a lot of different people, process office, organizational people, and stuff. And the only thing we're doing in this offsite, 2 days, we're out. We're not going through business cases, KPIs, processes. I mean, we have loads of initiatives that we need to implement. We need to digitalize so many processes, but we're not going to concentrate on that. We're going to concentrate on how do we, by following our actions as transformational leaders, because we're all transformational leaders, how do we act? How do we all become role models? Not only me and not only my first line of managers, but everyone else. How do we live it up, and how do we show, and how do we, role model for everybody else what transformation is and what the change should be? And I promise you, every time we do things like this, people follow, because you like to be part of a winner team. You like to be part of the positive team. You don't want to be negative. Although we are all saying, oh, we are reluctant to change and we're negative and things like this. Yes, that's very easy to fall into that path. Yeah. But it's also very nice to be in the winning team. It's nice to, it's nice to be happy when you're scoring a goal. That's why we go to football, and that's why we go to things like that, right? So, and this is the same in the companies. If you give this motivation, if you give this positiveness, and if you actually, and another thing that we learned as well, which we forgot to do in the past, which we're doing today, is every time we have a little success, even if it's a small one, we celebrate it. I'm not saying we should do something big, but say, hey, we did well done, just an email or a little note or, or acknowledgement, so that we realize, okay, this is the right path, because there's going to be a lot of setbacks. There's going to be a lot of negative things during the change, during the transformation. There's going to be a lot of people saying, they're not going to make it, it's crap how they do it, but at some point people get into this positive mood, because we are positive people in the end, human beings, I mean.
Yeah, Isabel, your passion is just so evident, and I think stimulating this passion has to have a positive impact on those around you. It must pull people in and get them excited about the change process. We're coming up to the end. Florence, do you have just one quick little comment to make, and then we're going to start to wrap this up?
Yeah, there was a question about the role of individual and company values in navigating change. And, if I may, I thought it would be great to answer that. In the big pack of culture, which is, again, the way we do things here, it can reinforce the values that are on the website or go against it, for sure. And it was that Swedish company that I was telling you about that went through the IPO. We started working on the culture through the values. So we articulated the values the way they were today. And we looked at, we asked the people, actually, to go back to what Isabel was saying, to say, okay, this is the context in which we're going to operate tomorrow. What values do we need to keep, change, start, and how does that look like? And we transform those values into actual behaviors. And that's when then, the actions around development were based on the behaviors linked to the values. So it's really fundamental, and we want to be using the real values, not the ones that are necessarily written but not manifested. We want to talk about the ones that are in the company today and that we want to like and keep, and the ones that are going to be needed in the future. So that's an element of answer. I don't know if you have other comments on values.
Thank you so much on that. Thank you so much. Florence, Isabel, thank you for sharing your lessons of experience. Two experts that are out there actually doing it in the field, learning and improving and bringing transformation to their organization. So thank you so much for your insights. It's been very, very insightful. What I would say is this, the mission of the Center for Creative Leadership is very clearly to support leaders in their development so that they meet these challenges of change, transition, disruption. And we would love to share that learning with you. So if you want any information about the organization, what we offer, the programs we do, publications that we have, of course, ccl.org.org is the place to go to, and you'll find a whole list of the solutions available to you, both our programs and other assets that may be interesting for you. And I guess I would finish by just saying, please share this conversation with others. It's been a very rich conversation. I've certainly enjoyed it. Very interesting comments, questions, and insights from our experts. Feel free to share this and make it available to other people. Thank you so much for being with us at the Center for Creative Leadership.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your great comments and insights.